We're already halfway through the fantasy football regular season for 2023, and I'm at the point where I'm already done with some of these players that I had hoped for coming into the season. But after really poor performances so far, I'm ready to give up on these guys. And starting first with Jordan Love, who I was skeptical on coming into the season, but I saw the upside as a young quarterback in a good offensive system with good weapons around him. But through 6 games, he has been extremely underwhelming. He's only averaging 210 passing yards per game and is yet to have a game over 260 passing yards, which only Kenny Pickett and Zach Wilson are the only other 2 quarterbacks currently to have not done that this year. He's averaging 6.5 yards per attempt, which is 24th in the league, a 57.5 completion percentage, which is 32nd in the league, and he has thrown 7 interceptions already in 6 games with a 3.5% interception percentage, which is 28th in the league. The only positive for Love right now are his 10 passing touchdowns, which is top 10 in the league. But even then, I could spin that as kind of a negative by saying that his 5.2% touchdown percentage is still a bit high, especially whenever you involve all the other metrics like yards per attempt, completion percentage, and all that. And if he had a more average 4% touchdown percentage, he would have only 7 passing touchdowns, which would drop his fantasy points per game from 18.1 as the QB 10 right now to 16 on the dot, which is QB 18, right next to guys like Desmond Ridder, Joshua Dobbs, and Baker Mayfield. From a fantasy standpoint, he's been a completely fine QB2 in Superflex. He's never finished below QB24, and he actually has 2 top 10 weeks, including 1 top 5 performance back in week 1. But from a dynasty value perspective, there's a lot of risk here for a player who isn't a typical first-year starting quarterback. This is year 4 for Jordan Love, and yes, he signed through next season on a very team-friendly deal, but if the season were to end today, they would have the 7th overall pick, which they could leverage for a quarterback in a very solid rookie class in 2024. And if that happens, Jordan Love is now what? Mitch Trubisky last year in front of Kenny Pickett, Marcus Mariota last year in front of Desmond Ridder, Josh Dobbs right now in front of Kyler Murray. I mean, for a player who is valued on keep trade cut right now, right around a 2024 first and ahead of other quarterback 2s like Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, Kirk Cousins, wouldn't you rather just cash out now instead of holding on to the risk that Jordan Love's value just completely bottoms out for the rest of the year? I know I would. Moving over to the running back position, there's really no one that I am more out on for like the remainder of his career, honestly, than Najee Harris. And this might be the best time to sell him right now because he's had 3 straight really good weeks, 2 top 20 weeks, and 1 this past Sunday where he was the RB13 overall because he finally found the end zone. But there has just been no redeeming quality in Najee's season so far. Just nothing. He's averaging under 4 yards a carry, only 50 rushing yards per game on 13 carries per game, both of which are career lows. And after a massive drop-off in receiving production from year 1 to year 2, we're seeing another massive drop-off where he's averaging only 2 targets per game. He is quite literally 8th on his own team in targets. 8th.
Not great, Bob.
And because of this horrendous start to the year, his dynasty value has just plummeted. He lost the 3rd most dynasty value out of any player at any position from August to October in DLF ADP. The only other 2 players who lost more value in that span were J.K. Dobbins and Nick Chubb because they both had season-ending injuries. If you can still get a 2nd-round pick for Najee, please do so. Do not hold out on the hope for greener pastures ahead because they are just not coming. Cash out now and don't get stuck holding the bag. Another running back that I'm completely done with is Miles Sanders. And honestly, this might be worse than Najee Harris because at least Najee is getting the volume right now and he is still a year younger and still on his rookie contract. But with Miles Sanders, his entire dynasty value was predicated on the fact that he would be a cheap, productive veteran for contenders this season because of all the volume that he's going to get in Carolina. Well, fast forward now to week 8, and that has not been the case at all this season since week 1. 10 carries per game, 3 receptions per game, under 45 total yards per game, and only 1 touchdown scored from week 2 on. Not to mention that he missed a game due to injury. He had a bye week in there already, so another 2 games that you couldn't even start him, which honestly might have been more of a blessing, so you didn't feel forced to actually start him, and then he puts up a 6 or 7 fantasy point performance. But his last 2 games, he has been out-snapped and out-touched by Chuba Hubbard. And Chuba had the best individual game this season out of the 2 with 19 for 88 and 1 back in week 6 against the Miami Dolphins. Sanders has just not lived up to any of the expectations we had for him in Carolina, and it's time to give up and move on. Ship him off to another contender on the promise of a cheap volume running back still and get back something actually meaningful for Dynasty. If you can still get a 2nd round pick, that's fantastic. I'd even take guys like Roshan Johnson, Jalen Warren, Tyler Algier, A.J. Dillon even. At least all of those guys are younger than Miles Sanders right now and can still produce basically the same, if not better, than Miles Sanders for the remainder of the season. And you're going to be so much happier to have those guys in your Dynasty roster next offseason than you would Miles Sanders. All right, moving over to the wide receiver position now. I am so ready to call it quits on Jerry Jeudy. And I know Justin just talked about his panic level on Jerry Jeudy in a recent video as well that I'll link at the end, but I also want to throw my hat in the ring here on Jeudy as well. There has just been nothing good for Jerry Jeudy this season. And honestly, there really hasn't been anything good for him throughout his entire career since his rookie season. It's just been complete mediocrity with absolutely zero growth. He hasn't finished inside the top 25 receivers once this season, and he's had 3 games that basically tanked your entire week. And we can no longer blame this on outside circumstances either. Russell Wilson is doing his job. He's actually returned to like 80 to 90% Seahawks Russell Wilson, as he's on pace for 3,600 yards and 32 passing touchdowns this year. Not his fault. It's not Sean Payton's fault. Courtland Sutton's doing well. He's a top 20 fantasy wide receiver. Marvin Mims has shown great potential already in the small flashes that he's already played. There is no one left to blame for Jerry Jeudy except Jerry Jeudy. And I don't even care if he gets traded. What situation is going to be better than the one that he's been in right now, or honestly has been in for 4 years now since his rookie year? So I'm ready to give up. I'm selling him for like a 2nd round pick, and I just want him off of my team. And then last on this list, I'm ready to call it quits on Quentin Johnston. And I know, how can I pull the plug on a rookie who has only played 6 games? Give the guy a chance, for Pete's sake. Well, I'm just getting ahead of the curve here because there will be a bunch of people who wait until November, December, honestly, even onto next year, and they'll still be hopeful that Quentin Johnston can hit. But the writing's on the wall here, guys. In 3 games without Mike Williams, Johnston has seen 7 total targets on 50% of the snaps. He actually saw more targets weeks 1 through 3 with Mike Williams on the field than he did weeks 4, 6, and 7 with Mike Williams out. And we know it's possible for rookies to step into a larger role in place of an injured starter. We just watched Jackson Smith-Njigba go for 4 for 68 and a touchdown on 7 targets on Sunday without DK Metcalf. I mean, even Jake Bobo had 4 for 61 and a touchdown without Metcalf in the same game. Jordan Addison has been fantastic without Justin Jefferson. Jayden Reed saw 20 targets in 3 games without Christian Watson. Josh Downs has already beaten out Alec Pierce. Rashee Rice is the wide receiver 1 in Kansas City. Tank Dell has had some huge games. Marvin Mims has flashed. Zay Flowers has looked great. And I didn't even need to mention what Puka Nacua is doing with and without Cooper Kupp. Basically, every 1st to 3rd round rookie wide receiver from this past draft has produced so far this year in some way except Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt, and Quentin Johnston.
Coincidence? I think not!
We are dangerously close to a face-planting rookie season for Johnston, which we define here as under 500 receiving yards. Johnston's on pace right now for under 200. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Justin put out a great member-only video talking about the historical failures of receivers who don't eclipse 500 yards as a rookie, which you can watch by joining our memberships on this channel. But the number that we're talking about here is 92%. 92% of rookie wide receivers who failed to reach 500 yards as a rookie never then go on to have successful fantasy careers. 92% of them. That's where we're at with Quentin Johnston, and there have been no signs whatsoever that this season is going to get any better for him at all. If you can still get a 25 or even a 2026 first round pick for him, great. Sell him right now. I'd still be willing to take a 2nd round pick for him, or maybe you can pivot to another rookie that I just mentioned, like Rashee Rice, Josh Downs, Marvin Mims, or maybe you can use him to buy low on one of the players that I talk about in this video right up here.